addressing the aura, l'aura. Um, um, but what Shakespeare does is he dramatizes the sonnet. That's one of the great things that Shakespeare does. Yeah. And he kind of um, he exploits a kind of dialogical characteristic of um, of poetic language. Yeah. Um, uh, and that's something that one can track in his career. Yeah, his publishing career, his professional career, where he, as I say, he neglected his um, the publication of his sonnets until they were pirated. Yeah, and in the pirated edition, um, there is a sonnet. One of Shakespeare's sonnets appears in the pirated edition, which is 1599, and he remanie ce sonnet. Yeah, it's the virtually the only one where we can see we have rather two versions of the sonnet. Yeah, one, the first one, which is probably um, uh, genuinely written by Shakespeare, even if it's piraté, because they were kind of circulating among his friends, right? And that was in 1599, and then the second one published in 1609. And we just see how Shakespeare kind of changes the sonnet, and it's really, really interesting. Um, as he moves into something much more a voice which is much more Shakespeare's voice. Yeah, it's much less Petrarchan. I mean, you know, if you're not familiar with the sonnets yet, yeah, you will, I hope, become familiar with the sonnets. Then, you know, the Petrarchan sonnet, the Shakespearean sonnet, the Spenserian sonnet, the Sidney sonnet, these things will seem just names to you. Okay. But it's kind of the way in which the relation between feeling, otherness, solitude, and expression. You know, this kind of laboratory of the lyric is what one of the things that's really interesting in the sonnet. Yeah, the sonnet as a way of exploring the specificities of lyric poetry. And lyric poetry, of course, is one of the ways of defining the lyric genre is that it's about how I feel and what I think here and now. Okay, so you know, classically there were three genres of poetry. You know, there was dramatic poetry. Yeah. Aristote, par exemple, il écrit un livre sur la littérature qui s'appelle The Poetics, the Poetic. And one of the genres he writes about specifically, of course, is theater, the tragedy. Okay, Aristotle is talking about tragedy, and he says, the form of tragedy is the form of our experience of time. This is Aristotle. The form of tragedy is the form of our experience of time. We live in historical time. Tragedy, tragos odos, is the song of the goat, qu'on sacrifie. So we live in this linear historical time, and then we die, and we enter eternity. Yeah, this kind of, you know, like the cross of Jesus, right? Linear historical time. Then we have eternity, where there's no forward movement. There's no movement in eternity. Yeah. So we have this apotheose, or we have the epiphany, yeah, coming the other way. Yeah. So the form of tragedy is that, you know, the tragic hero lives and then dies, right? In this time and then that time. So Aristotle talks about dramatic poetry. There's also, of course, Homer's epics or epic or narrative poetry, and there's lyric poetry, right? So there's a classical division, you know, I'm sure this is familiar to you, of these three genres of literature, essentially: lyric, narrative, epic, and dramatic. But the modern lyric, in the kind of post-romantic sense, you know, as it's come to be known, are you familiar with? I don't know. Hang on. Can I get a chat. Now, why is my chat disappeared? Maybe I need to. I want to chat. Oh, so here. Are you familiar with this?
Who do you want to send it to?
To everyone.
I don't see everyone in your contacts. Who do you want to send it to?
Some unpleasant voice in my computer. So lyrical ballads, yeah, is Wordsworth and Wordsworth. Whom? Do you know? You should know this. Who's the co-author of lyrical ballads? Celui qui a fondé le romantisme. Taylor, no. Oh, his middle name is Taylor. Samuel Taylor. No? Taylor Coleridge. Oui, the ancient mariner. Yeah? Océane. Yeah, okay. Ariana, Nino, et voilà. Yeah, so lyrical ballad. So a ballad is a narrative poem, okay? So when the book appeared, Lyrical Ballads, people, it feels like a contradiction. How can you have a lyrical ballad? Yeah, a ballad is a story. It's a traditional form of poem. Yeah, whereas lyrical is to do with how you feel, what you think yourself now. Yeah, it's like blues. Yeah, woke up this morning, my baby was gone. Yeah, that's blues, right? Woke up this morning, here and now. How do I feel? Yeah. It's what's called in terms semiotic, it's indexed to the present, the lyric. Okay. Um, so Shakespeare's exploring the limits of lyric. He's exploring the dialogical nature of lyric, the nature of language, the relation in language between expression and communication. Yeah. The prime function of language is not communication, it's expression. Um, but of course it's read, okay, and it's in a form, so it's communicated. So let's have a look at, let's get back to our stuff. So I'm going to, at some point, I'm going to go off and fish out another couple of texts from the stuff I put up on Amétis, yeah, which I have to do. Here, no, nothing of that. So love who lives, so amor che nel penser mio vive e regna, e il suo seggio maggior nel mio cor teme, talora armato nella fronte venne, ivi si loca e ivi pon sua insegna. Quella ch'amare e sofferir ne insegna, e vol che il gran desio l'accesa spenne, ragion, vergogna, reverenza affreni, di nostro ardir fra se stessa si sdegna. So this is a literal translation. Love who lives and rules in my thought and holds his chief seat in my heart, sometimes armed comes into my face, and there makes camp and places his banner. She who teaches me to love and suffer and wants reason, wants meaning um, lacks, wants reason, shame, and respect, restrain my great desire and burning hope, takes offense inwardly at our ardor. Therefore, love, fearful, flees to the heart, abandoning it all, and cries and shakes. He hides himself and is seen abroad no more. What can I do when my master is afraid, except stand with him to the bitter end? He makes a fine end who dies loving well. So these are these two translations, yeah, Wyatt and Howard, yeah. So I'm going to read them and I'm going to ask you to think about the differences between them, yeah. Um, where's that gone? Okay, that there, okay, yeah. So I move this guy out of the way. The long love that in my thought doth harbour, and in mine heart doth keep his residence, into my face presseth with bold pretence, and there encampeth, spreading his banner. She that me learneth to love and suffer, and will that my trust and lust's negligence be reined by reason, shame, and reverence, with his hardiness taketh displeasure. Wherewithal unto the heart's forest he fleeth, leaving his enterprise with pain and cry, and there him hideth and not appeareth. What may I do when my master feareth, but in the field with him to live and die? For good is the life ending faithfully. You probably find this kind of difficult to understand, no? Difficult to follow some of the English, yeah? I would imagine, yeah? Um, let's put this guy up here. Love that doth reign and live within my thought, and built his seat within my captive breast, clad in the arms wherein with me he fought. Oft in my face he doth his banner rest. But she that taught me love and suffer pain, my doubtful hope and eke my hot desire with shamefast look to shadow and refrain, her smiling grace converteth straight to ire. And coward love then to the heart apace taketh his flight, where he doth lurk and plain, his purpose lost, and dare not show his face. For my Lord's guilt, thus faultless bide I pain, yet from my Lord shall not my foot remove. Sweet is the death that taketh end by love. So he's saying that um, uh, when, I mean, the literal translation, yeah, when she um, uh, when she disdains, yeah, disdaigna, she takes offense, yeah, um, at my ardor, right? When she does that, then what do I do? My love flees to the heart. Yeah, I I, I hide myself inside. Yeah, I don't show my love anymore. Yeah, okay, that's the literal translation here. Yeah. In here, do you see any differences between these two versions? Does one appear harder than the other? Does one appear more military than the other? Does one appear more morally judgmental than the other? Can you get that? Or is that a bit too obscure for you?
I'd say that Howard's version is a bit more military, like you just said,
It's a bit more military, yeah?
with the idea of a captive, sort of fort, banner, also things like that.
Yeah, yeah. There's
Seat
that.
also.
Yeah. And then can you work out in which one there's more of a kind of judgment going on, kind of moral judgment? Or at least the language of judgment? Coward love. Yeah. That's faultless. Whereas this one, Wyatt, is what may I do? Yeah. That was like, what can I do? Yeah. Um, uh, the question of judgment of feelings is suspended in Wyatt. What may I do when my master feareth in the field with him to live and die? Yeah. Um, that question of the here Wyatt's kind of um, uh, uncertainties, yeah, is something that he adopts from Petrarch. Yeah. Um, you notice, I mean, the sonnet is made up of two parts. Okay. Uh, Petrarch sonnets are made up of an octet and a sestet, yeah, 8 and 6 lines. And between 8 and 6, you have what's called the volta. Volta meaning the turn. Okay. Um, and what is the turn? Um, the turn is usually in the first sonnet of Petrarch we looked at, yeah, where it's a movement from observation to reflection. Okay? One of the things that Shakespeare does is that Shakespeare displaces the volta from line 8 to line 12, yeah, so that Shakespeare's sonnets are not an octet and then a sextet. They're usually three quatrains and a couplet. Yeah? He didn't invent that, but he perfects that notion, right? So I mean, do you know James Dean, the actor? Yeah, James Dean, the American actor who died in a car crash. Yeah, no, you don't know James Dean? Where's that gone? Yeah. So James Dean has one of his films, I think it's the one called East of Eden, or is it Rebel Without a Cause, where this kind of American adolescents, one of the games they play is that they race two cars like that to the edge of a cliff, right? And the alpha male guys are in the cars, and the idea is that you have to jump out of the car as late as possible. Okay, otherwise the car goes over the cliff, right? And of course, in the film, it's very tragic because James Dean jumps out at the last minute, and the other guy is caught with his belt in the gear, the brake or something, yeah, and he dies, right? So the idea being that the turn is you get out of observation in the volta, and then you go into reflection, okay? And one of the things that Shakespeare does is he jumps out of that car as late as he can. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a cuckoo kind of metaphor, yeah, that I'm using, yeah. But he jumps out of that car as late as he can, yeah. Hang on, whoops.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
So does it mean that in Shakespeare there are three voltas, or that just
No,
the last one is okay?
Just one. Just one.
Just the one between the quatrain and the disque passé?
Yeah, between the last quatrain and the couplet.
Okay, that's it. Thanks.
I mean, there are things to do with like rhyme scheme. Shakespeare's usual rhyme scheme is ABAB, CD, EFEF, GG. Okay, so rhyming couplet. Whereas Petrarch will have more kind of crossed rhymes, especially in the sestet. Yeah. Here you've got like ABBA. Yeah, here in Wyatt's you've got ABBA, ABBA. Don't twice ABBA. You got ABBA, okay, and then you got C, D, C, C, D, D. Okay. So you got a rhyming couplet at the end, as in Howard, okay, but in Howard you don't have. He's got here. Just look at Howard's rhyme scheme. Yeah, you got A B, yeah, C D, E F, E F, G. Okay, so you got the Shakespearean scheme in Howard. Okay, you got slightly more Petrarchan rhyme scheme in Wyatt. Yeah. Of course, when the pronunciation at the time was different. Are you familiar with the thing called the Great Vowel Shift? Is that a familiar term to you guys, or no? Chat. Not at all. No, the Great Vowel Shift. You don't do that in phonetics. Rings a bell. Okay, so entre le 14e et le 18e siècle, les voyelles en anglais ont changé. Le son des voyelles a changé. Okay, and that's one of the reasons why, for example, you get words written differently but pronounced the same. For example, bear, B-A-R-E, yeah, meaning nu, yeah, and bear, B-E-A-R, meaning porter, Yeah. They're both pronounced bear now. Bear is a kind of diphthong, right? Air, bear, right? Whereas originally, you would have had different vowel sounds, you know, like bear. Moon, with la lune, moon, yeah, in Shakespeare's day would have been pronounced moon. Um, love would have been love, and remove would have been remove. So you have, this is a rhyme, right? Yeah. And so often things, they don't look as if they're rhyming, because in modern English they don't, but love and remove would be pronounced the same in Shakespeare's day. So the great vowel shift essentially means that there were vowel sounds which were much lower in the body, much more bass sound. Oh, yeah, I can still more or less do it in my voice, which don't exist in English anymore. Yeah. In some regional accents, they still exist. Okay, so Shakespeare's plays, for example, would have been pronounced, spoken, acted more quickly than they are now. I mean, now the vowels are much more in the head. I say, and coward love then to the heart apace taketh his flight. Yeah, so if you got that kind of fruity Shakespeare voice, the long love that in my thought does harbour, in my heart does keep his residence, into my face presses with bold pretence, and therein campeth, spreading his banner, she that me learneth to love and suffer. Nothing to do with the pronunciation in Shakespeare's time. To be or not to be, that is the question. Much in Shakespeare's day, much quicker, much lower. Yeah, to bear, not to bear, that's the question. Yeah, I mean, obviously not slurred like that. I'm not an actor at all. Yeah, but quicker and lower. Yeah. Um, yeah. So I'd like to go on to. Hang on. I need to go to here and pick up. Can you still see my screen there or no?
We received the same document as before with
Okay.
Thomas Wyatt and Howard.
Oh, you've got Howard still. Okay, all right. All right, well, if you just bear with me for 2 seconds. I'm just getting something else up here. Sorry, it'll just be 2 seconds. There we go. Okay, BIM, and then Sonnet, Sydney, everything is okay. And then down. And then that's it. Okay, so now I have to put this up. How do I? Okay, sorry, I have to just do further. Sorry, I have a theatre class going on next door. How do I, wait a minute. I need to turn this off and then turn this on again. Turn that on again. Et voilà. Launch my thing again. Why is it not wanting to do that? Hang on. Hoo, hoo, hoo. Why is that? to do. I need to stop share. My apologies for how long this is taking. Inordinate amount of time. I need to get just one more document up. And then I'll be back with you. Turn that off. Turn this on. Turn this on. Where is that? It's very annoying. No. Oh, I know what to do. Sorry, I got a better idea. One of my documents seems to have disappeared. Okay. Okay, so, all right. I'll put that down there. Okay, that goes down. Then this comes up. And then share the screen. Voila. So can you see now, sorry for that hiatus. Can you see Romeo and Juliet on your screen? Yeah, okay, so this is this was actually supposed to be on Amethyst, but it's disappeared. So this is a scene in the, I don't know if you know, has anybody read Romeo and Juliet? No, you have, okay. So Romeo and Juliet opens with a prologue in the form of a sonnet. And then what's really interesting in Shakespeare's, in the kind of perspective of this class, yeah, is the way that the first meeting of Romeo and Juliet is the first conversation of Romeo and Juliet is a sonnet. Okay, so for those of you who don't know the story, there are these two families, the Capulets, which is Juliet's family, and the Montagues, which is Romeo's family, and they're enemies, right? There's a kind of a feud, a vendetta, kind of feud. There's just a blood feud between them, right? And Tybalt is Juliet's cousin, who's very violent, okay? And so one evening in Verona, there's a ball, a kind of party at the Capulet house, yeah, Juliet's house, and Romeo manages to get into the party, right? He doesn't know Juliet yet. Yeah, he's in love with a woman called Rosaline. Yeah, Romeo, he's melancholic, he's romantic, he's in love with this woman who does not return his affection, his emotion, his love. So he's melancholic, and his friends take him to this party at the Capulet house, and at the Capulet house, he sees Juliet, okay, and he falls in love at first sight, essentially, right? And then he goes to see her. He goes over to her, okay. The previous scene, he says, so this is, can you see this? What lady is that? Yeah? Can you see that? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. What lady is that which doth enrich the hand of yonder knight? I know not so. Oh, she doth teach the torches to burn bright. It seems she hangs upon the cheek of night like a rich jewel in an Ethiop's ear. Beauty too rich for use, for earth too dear. So shows a snowy dove trooping with crows, as yonder lady o'er her fellows shows. The measure done, I'll watch her place of stand, and touching hers make blessed my rude hand. Did my heart love till now? forswear it, sight, for I ne'er saw true beauty till this night. So he sees her, and there's this contrast, of course, between the purity, yeah, of Juliet and the mediocrity of the people around her, yeah. The white dove and the black crows, yeah. And that, of course, these are cliches, right? Yeah. And it's very interesting the way that we'll see the way that Shakespeare, one of the things he does, yeah, is to kind of evacuate cliches from his writing completely, yeah. And of course, the cliches have all kinds of meanings and all kinds of consequences. Sometimes the cliches are just aesthetic cliches, yeah. Sometimes the cliches come with a kind of moral or ideological violence with them, yeah. And I don't know if you know the play Othello, Shakespeare's play, which is essentially about racism, yeah, where Shakespeare is looking at the way in which cliches around blackness and negritude in Othello are instrumentalized violently by a society which is just beginning to discover racism. That's very interesting in Othello. And one of the things that you get in the sonnets, and we'll look at, is the way in which Shakespeare kind of he's very aware of the illusory power of language generally, yeah, and especially the kind of the way in which feelings are carried on metaphor, yeah. Metaphor carries feelings in such a way that metaphor in a way substitutes for feelings. So he's very distrustful, he's very méfiant of that. And he works out that méfiance in dialogue in his sonnets, yeah. So that's something that's really interesting ethically in Shakespeare's sonnets, yeah. The kind of the ethical motive for it. I don't mean moral, you know, I mean ethical. And ethical is the relation to the real, yeah. That's really important, yeah. The ethical is the relation to the real. Okay. The moral and ethical are different. Yeah. The moral is the relation to a symbolic order, like religion or the law, for example. Whereas the ethical is the relation to the real. Okay. And you know, Shakespeare is a man of the theater. Okay. And of course, and that's absolutely fundamental. You know, theater in Shakespeare. And in the theater, of course, what you have is you have real actors. Okay, and I cannot emphasize this too much. The theater is real. Okay, it was Shakespeare's quotidien. The theater involves real people together in a real place. Flesh and blood actors called Richard and John and Will, okay, not princes called Hamlet, okay, or young Italian men called Romeo. You have real actors, English actors, and that physical presence of the real person is the base of theatre. Yeah, that the fact of being present together with another. Somebody could say the same for enseignement, right? I mean, doing this à l'écran is bizarre, right? Yeah. But that's obviously another question. Yeah. So, and somebody once said, you know, theatre is not unreal, it's differently real. I think that's a really, really good phrase to think about. Theatre is differently real. I mean, if you know Hamlet, you'll know that Hamlet organizes a little kind of dramaticule, yeah, to expose the guilt of his uncle who's murdered his father, right? So he has the players, the theater players, play a scene in the theater, the murder of Gonzago, where a man has murdered his brother by pouring poison into his ear while he slept. Okay, so Shakespeare gets the actors to act this out in front of the king. So the audience, we're watching Hamlet, who's watching the king, who's watching the actors play. And Hamlet wants the king's guilt to be revealed. So you have this kind of jeu de miroir. Corneille does that in a play called L'Illusion Comique as well. Yeah, do you know? Has anybody come across that play of Corneille, L'Illusion Comique? No? Check it out. It's fantastic to do with that. Yeah. Hamlet, of course, says to. Are you still with me in the chat? By the way, can I just check that you're still? Because my system melted down earlier on. Okay, good. So Hamlet, another interesting moment in this perspective in Hamlet is when, the beginning, so Hamlet, il est en deuil pour son père et sa mère, donc veuve, a épousé l'oncle, okay, le frère du défunt. And Hamlet is disgusted by the fact, and he says, il est très ironique, il says, bon, le dîner pour les obsèques, ça peut servir au mariage, non? C'est même pas, non, c'est juste le poulet est froid, quoi. Mais là, tu prends ça, ça va pour la bouffe, ça va pour le. I mean, he's like that. He's very aggressive. And the father says, look, the uncle plutôt, donc maintenant le mari de sa maman, says, why are you still on deuil? I mean, it's the death of the father is very common. I mean, meaning très fréquent. And Hamlet takes it being très vulgaire. Yeah, it's very common. I mean, he calls his mother a kind of whore, essentially. And he gets very physical with her, in bed. He gets into bed with his mother. And I'll tell you a story about where that scene comes from as well. So the uncle says, look, Hamlet, it's a common thing, right? And his mother says, yeah, but you look so, sad and come on, I mean, get over it kind of thing. And Hamlet says, I have that in me which passeth show, which, qui va au-delà de ce qui peut être manifesté. Moi, my feelings, my inner feelings cannot be acted. He says, it's not because you'll never guess what I feel by seeing tears on my face or wearing black clothes for day, or pale. No external signs can show my inner feelings. I have that in me which passeth show. And he says, man may not act my feelings. So you're looking at this actor. Yeah, it's just genial. You're looking at an actor saying that no actor can act Hamlet. Okay. Smart thing to write. Okay. Because of course then tu es ramené encore une fois au réel du comédien. Yeah. It's the actor who's real, not the character. Yeah. I once saw a mise en scène of Hamlet by a guy called Powen, a German guy. And what he did was he asked his actors, donc il avait une troupe de 6 comédiens, okay? So he asked them to memorize the whole of the text of Hamlet. Imagine this is Hamlet, yeah? From the beginning of Act 2, Scene 1, so not the whole text, but the beginning of, say, Act 2 or Act 1, Scene 3, I can't remember. Here to the end of Act 4. Okay, so there's like les 2/3 de la pièce, to memorize the whole text. Okay, so you go into the theater and you go on the stage, you see the Powen is sitting here, and then 3 actors here, and then 3 actors here, okay? And they're dressed in kind of neutral tunics, kind of basic, neutre, blanc cassé. And Powen, he indicates one actor, okay, yeah? So he'll indicate an actor who starts acting that scene, that character, that part, and then he'll indicate another one who'll start acting and maybe take over the speech, the tirade in the middle. And then maybe another actor would want to come in there and take over that part. Yeah, but this actor here continues playing, right? And this one sits down again, or maybe, yeah, so it goes. And of course, they're fabulous actors, and it's just fascinant. It's brilliant, okay? And then the next night, you go again. And now Powen, instead of asking this actor to start, will ask that actor to start. Okay, so this actor begins. Okay, and of course you have in your memory the actor from the previous night who was brilliant, and this one is different. This one is also good. Yeah, this is different, right? And so it goes. And then you go back a third night, a fourth night, 5 nights. Okay. Of course, theatre is never the same anyway, even if you see the same production twice, right? So it's absolutely fantastically intelligent mise en scène because you have the text, you have the actors. What's fluid is character. You know, this unreal, yeah, is fluid and changing and shifting. Okay. So Shakespeare is a guy who's utter brilliance, I think, is ancré in his very strong sense of the real, yeah, like any great art, yeah. So we'll come back to that, yeah. So today we've got half an hour. I want to get to Wyatt's sonnet. I want to have a look at Spenser. I want to look at a bit of Shakespeare as well. So I've got a few things to look at. So, donc, coming back to Romeo and Juliet. So Romeo sees Juliet, and oh my God, okay, oh my God, yeah. And then Tybalt said, wait a minute, that's a Montague there, okay. And Tybalt, like a pit bull, yeah, he wants his sword, okay. And then the uncle, Capulet, so Juliet's father, yeah, Tybalt's uncle, says, wait, just chill out, yeah. And Capulet says, no, he's a good guy, Romeo, just get lost. If you make a scene here, I'll kill you. Yeah. You're a saucy boy, meaning insolent, right? Go to, shut up, right? So then Romeo comes to Juliet, okay, and here's this encounter is a sonnet, okay? So this is this famous moment where so Juliet taking her hand, this is the first time they speak. If I profane with my unworthiest hand this holy shrine, the gentle sin is this. My lips, two blushing pilgrims, ready stand to smooth that rough touch with a tender kiss. Good pilgrim, you do wrong your hand too much, which mannerly devotion shows in this. For saints have hands that pilgrims' hands do touch, and palm to palm is holy palmer's kiss. That's the first quatrain, second quatrain. Yeah? Have not saints lips and holy palmers too? I, pilgrim, lips that they must use in prayer. O then, dear saint, let lips do what hands do. They pray, grant thou, lest faith turn to despair. Saints do not move, though grant for prayer's sake. Then move not, while my prayer's effect I take. He kisses her. So that's the end of the sonnet. Okay, yeah. So this sonnet is about lips meeting. Yeah, it ends in a kiss, right? So it ends in a conjunction, right, of two things. I just read it again. So the kind of metaphor is that he, as a pilgrim, yeah, should not defile the shrine, the holy shrine, yeah, where the saints are, yeah. And she says, no, it's okay, because saints, yeah, the statues of saints may be touched by pilgrims' hands, it's okay. And touching hands for pilgrims is like a kiss. And then Romeo, il fait une surenchère, là, surenchérie. Yeah, but okay, but saints and pilgrims both have lips too. And Juliet says, yeah, but they're supposed to pray with their lips. And he says, look, saint, just let the lips do what the hands do. Yeah. So a kiss is like a prayer of lips, okay? And in order so that you should let me kiss you, okay, unless so that my faith does not turn to despair, okay? Saints do not move. So I'm not moving. Do we want? Okay, saints do not move. I can't go and kiss you because, I mean, come on, statues don't move, right? Yeah, he says, okay, just stay there while I kiss you. Okay, that's what he says, right? If I profane with my unworthiest hand this holy shrine, the gentle sin is this: my lips, two blushing pilgrims, ready stand to smooth that rough touch with a tender kiss. Good pilgrim, you do wrong your hand too much, which mannerly devotion shows in this. For saints have hands that pilgrims' hands do touch, and palm to palm is holy palmer's kiss. Have not saints lips, and holy palmers too? Ay, pilgrim, lips that they must use in prayer. O then, dear saint, let lips do what hands do. They pray, grant thou, lest faith turn to despair. Saints, do not move, so grant for prayer's sake. Then move not, while my prayer's effect I take. See that couplet, yeah. So the rhyme, of course, is a kiss of sounds, right? Yeah. Take, kisses, sake. Okay. And this sort of idea of and then he kisses her, right? Yeah. So there's this fabulous theatrical representation and performance of the sonnet, yeah, and the idea of coming to a conclusion, of concluding, of conjoining, of making sense, of le son et le sens font corps, yeah, that the meaning and the sound come together, okay, yeah. And of course it's devotional, right? Um, and you know, there's also something, you know, as in Hamlet, where Hamlet, he wants to kill his uncle, right? The father says, you know, revenge me, kill the uncle. And Hamlet's thinking, yeah, I want to kill him. But of course, you know, only God is a judge of souls, right? So Hamlet cannot judge Claudius's soul. Only God can do that. And of course, Claudius is not prepared for death, so Hamlet can't kill him. Voilà, il trouve toutes sortes de prétextes, d'excuses pour ne pas agir, non? C'est l'Oedipe quelque part, non? Comme disait Freud. So there's also this thing then of the kind of the moral or religious hubris, yeah, that, I mean, Juliet is not a saint, okay, and you don't have an erotic relation with a saint, of course it's a lieu commun, like Sainte Thérèse, l'extase de Sainte Thérèse. So this sonnet is a dramatic sonnet, but it shows all of the direction that Shakespeare's sonnets go in, okay. And what do I want to show you now? I want to show you, yeah, just pour revenir un peu en arrière avant d'avancer. Pilgrim, of course, ah là, vous n'avez pas, je pense que vous n'avez pas de truc là. I have to stop sharing. Then I have to bring up, then I have to bring up this, yeah. Put it down again. Share screen. Where is it? Okay. Turn that off. Put that down. So can I share the screen? Ah, pourquoi ça ne marche pas? And then I need to put that down. Oh, I know what I didn't do. I keep the sequence into one dimension. This goes up, that goes up, that goes there, and then that goes there, and then that goes there. Donc, est-ce que vous avez là Shakespeare Sonnet 138?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So You can actually find. I was going to put it on the Amethyst, but it was a bit. It didn't want to go. I don't know why. But online, you can find the facsimile of the Passionate Pilgrim. Okay, and it's really, really, really interesting to see the facsimile of this book. So the Passionate Pilgrim, donc, is this book published 1599 by this guy called William Jaggard. He was a printer in London, a printer, what's called a stationer. Yeah. And these were the guys who published books, right? And Jaggard published this book. And of course, the Passionate Pilgrim you may recognize as the term used by Romeo and Juliet, right? Yeah. Shakespeare in 1599 was very, very famous in London, but he was famous as the great love poet, right? And he was really irritated by that. He'd published some poems, some love poems, really wonderful, Venus and Adonis, The Rape of Lucrece. He published, or rather, he produced several plays. Many of them have been published too. But he was known, Romeo and Juliet was obviously a big success. It's an early play of Shakespeare's. He'd also produced history plays. His most performed play even now, his most performed play is Richard III, not Hamlet. It's a history play. It's a fabulous play about politics. He produced comedies. He produced all kinds of things. But he was known as the love poet, right? And the love playwright, the Passionate Pilgrim. So the Passionate Pilgrim is a kind of term used, a kind of reference to Shakespeare. Okay, Shakespeare is the Passionate Pilgrim, right? So in 1599, this sonnet was published. Il y avait deux sonnets de Shakespeare publiés, 138 et 144, yeah, which we'll look at as well. And this is the only sonnet that we have of Shakespeare's that we know he revised, that we have the revised version, okay? And I'd like to just look at it to see how it goes, yeah? And the changes he made, right? When my love swears that she is made of truth, I do believe her, though I know she lies, that she might think me some untutored youth, unskillful in the world's false forgeries. Thus vainly thinking that she thinks me young, although I know my years be past the best, I smiling credit her false-speaking tongue, outfacing faults in love with love's ill rest. But wherefore says my love that she is young? And wherefore say not I that I am old? Oh, love's best habit is a soothing tongue, and age in love loves not to have years told. Therefore I'll lie with love and love with me, since that our faults in love thus smothered be. Yeah. So my love swears that she's speaking the truth. 138, Shakespeare's sonnets, il y en a 154. And the first group of them, 126 sonnets, are dedicated to the young man. And then there's a group of sonnets dedicated to the dark lady. Okay. And they're addressed to. Okay. And I think some of them are directly addressed, some of them are kind of indirectly addressed. Okay. When my love swears that she is made of truth, I do believe her, though I know she lies. Sorry, my phone has just gone off. Sorry, I'm just getting an urgent message. My apologies again. This is, hang on. My apologies. Just because somebody has an appointment I need to confirm. So again, we're back together. Um, so when my love swears she's made of truth, I believe her, though I know she lies, so that she thinks that I'm just, I pretend to believe her so that she thinks I'm young, yeah, that I'm unskillful in the world's false forgeries, yeah. Um, but why does she say she's young? And why don't I say that I'm old? Because she's obviously not young and I'm old. So, because a soothing tongue is the best habit, meaning clothes and practice, yeah. Because age doesn't like to tell its years. So I'll lie with love. Lie, obviously, is a pun, you know, mentir et coucher avec. In love with me, since that our faults in love thus smothered be. And this was the, so ça a été publié en 99, yeah. This sort of Annus Mirabilis of Shakespeare when he wrote 4 plays, including Hamlet, yeah, and where he perfected the soliloquy. I began to talk about that. The the kind of déclencheur, one of the things that enabled Shakespeare to develop his soliloquies in his plays, in Hamlet particularly, was his reading of which French author? Voilà. A French author who writes kind of addressing himself to himself. He's kind of like, which great French author from the 16th century, donc traduit en anglais en 1581, grand bonhomme, yeah, du sud-ouest de la France, I think. He writes these texts which are quite sort of, they're ruminations, they're him exploring his thoughts. Do you know? Him, puis je vous donne un indice, this writer trying to formulate his thoughts about different subjects, about his digestion, about the world, about love, about life. He writes these wonderful, wonderful, wonderful essays. Montaigne, voilà, Montaigne. Montaigne was read a lot in England in les années 80-90, okay? And Shakespeare discovered Montaigne probably around about 1598. And it's the reading of Montaigne that pushes him towards the complexity of the soliloquies in the plays. And of course, the sonnets participate in that complexity, yeah. Yeah, I was telling you about Hamlet in his mother's bedroom, just to give an idea of the way in which Shakespeare incorporates the public space into the private drama, right? To create, and this is really important. One thing about the sonnets, people obviously wonder, who is this fair youth, this young man? And you know, it's the dedication, famous dedication to the sonnets, yeah. If you can see that, yeah. To the only begetter of these ensuing sonnets, Mr. W.H., all happiness and that eternity promised by our ever-living poet, wisheth the well-wishing adventure in setting forth. Mr. W.H. Who is Mr. W.H.? Because des tonnes d'encre, évidemment, chassées. Of course, it's not transcribed by Shakespeare, that dedication, by somebody called T.T. Okay, there's a different story, okay, but who is W.H.? Well, of course, the point being that Shakespeare, like what I said about Hamlet and finding the feelings cannot be represented, there are limits of interiority in the sonnets. People say that, okay, well, it's a kind of genre, and there are conventions, kind of Petrarchan conventions. So the idea that, you know, there is a personal experience with an actual fair youth who can be named, whether it's, you know, the Earl of Southampton or whoever else it might be. And there are many candidats. Il y a beaucoup de candidats pour avoir écrit les poèmes de Shakespeare, tout faux, évidemment. Okay, Shakespeare who wrote them. And so there's this sort of sense in some criticism of the sonnets that it's kind of conventional, it's generic. Um, there are like Petrarchan positions, um, and Shakespeare adopts these positions, and so we shouldn't look for actual experienced feeling in Shakespeare. Okay. Um, I think what's interesting is the way he navigates between the public and the private. Okay, the way that he's constantly looking to transform, yeah, to perform and transform the relation between the public and the private. Um, so just to give you this little anecdote of Hamlet in his mother's bed, yeah, that in 1599, this incredible year, there was an English military expedition to Ireland led by the Queen's former favourite, the Earl of Essex. And you can Google it, the Earl of Essex, and look at his beard, okay, in his images, okay. He always had a square cut beard. And he thought he was kind of like King Arthur or Essex. And he asked, he was 25 years younger than the Queen, he was about Shakespeare's age, or 30 years younger than the Queen, Shakespeare's age. And he wanted to lead this expedition to Ireland. So he led the expedition to Ireland, and there was a sequence of defeats and disasters in Ireland, the English army. But Essex spent his time creating knights, yeah, adoubés, ses copains, yeah, Sir William Ripon, Sir, etc. And he went with his friends, and he was creating all these knights. He thought he was in some medieval chevaleresque kind of mode. And there was a disaster. Okay, so they went around Ireland being beaten all the time. And people at court in London wanted Essex's head. Okay, he had been Queen Elizabeth's favorite, and he wasn't anymore, right? So he decided to quickly rush to London to ask for her pardon, to be kind of absous from all of this disaster. So he got on a ship with three friends, including the Earl of Southampton, this kind of cross-dressing um, patron of Shakespeare, who was like 24 years old and was an amazing soldier. He was dressed fantastically extravagantly. And they rode like crazy from Ireland through the ship, then Wales, all the way to London, covered in mud. And the Queen, of course, was old, and the Queen took a long time to put her face together, her head, okay, with the oxyde de plomb on her face, yeah, the white, which is what killed her, the lead poisoning, the red wig, yeah, and it took some time for her to be constructed every morning. And Essex rode to Richmond Palace, where she was, yeah, and got off the horse. He literally was covered in mud, and he rushed into her bedroom and knelt by her bed and pleaded for her forgiveness. And because she was shocked, and people were shocked, you do not enter the Queen's bedroom. Point. And surtout pas le matin, when she's not ready, and surtout pas comme ça. So she said, yes, yes, everything's okay. Go away. You're fine. I forgive you and everything. So he left. What did he do? The first thing he did, he wrote a sonnet. That's what one does. One writes sonnets. Wyatt and Howard, these two guys were reading, yeah, are diplomats, politicians, and soldiers as well. Philip Sidney was a soldier and a sonnet writer. 2 ans plus tard, il est exécuté. Essex. Okay, and donc ça n'a pas marché. So Shakespeare, and this scene was a big thing, September 1599, just as he's beginning to write Hamlet. This scene, and that scene of Essex bursting into the Queen's bedroom as a political act, okay, becomes the scene in Hamlet of Hamlet bursting into his mother's bedroom as part of the psychodrame, yeah? So that way that Shakespeare transforms the public into the private into the public is constant in him, yeah? So just look at this how he transforms, he revises this, yeah? We've seen the first version, yeah, and then the second one. When my love swears that she's made of truth, I do believe her, that I know she lies, that she might think me some untutored youth, unlearned in the world's false subtleties, yeah, not the world's false forgeries, but subtleties. Thus vainly thinking that she thinks me young, although she knows my days are past the best. Simply I credit her false-speaking tongue, yeah. On both sides, thus is simple truth suppressed, okay. Um, on both sides, ça c'est nouveau, outfacing faults in love with love's ill rest. I smile. Her false speaking tongue, c'est elle qui est fausse in the first one. Here, both sides. But wherefore says she not she is unjust? And wherefore say not that I am old? Oh, love's best habit is in seeming trust, and age in love loves not to have years told. Therefore I lie with her, and she with me, and in our faults by lies we flattered be. In the first version, les deux personnages are me, I, and love. Okay, I and love. In the second version, yeah, it's I with her and she with me. Okay, right. And the question of lying is much more. There's no personification of love. Ça c'est parti. Yeah. And there's an acceptance of lies. There's an acceptance of the theatricality of love. Okay, yeah. Whereas in this one, he still depends on that idealization of love. Okay. I'd like to go to this one if I can. Stop sharing that. Yeah, and then come to this, and then I go to that. Whoops. Oh, damn. Oops. I need to minimize this, I think. And then bring up where's Thomas Wyatt. Voila. Okay, and then I go back to this and that. Okay, so we're back to Thomas Wyatt, right? The guy who brought Petrarch into English. Okay. And sorry, it wasn't Wyatt I was wanting to look at. It was my apologies. So I just seen the clock. So that goes there. Philip Sidney. Ugh, get rid of Wyatt. Put us down. Bring up Philip Sidney. Share screen. Share screen. Okay. So now you have. So now you have Philip Sidney. Okay. It was just before Shakespeare, yeah, and I'm showing you Sidney in relation to this is all on the Amitis page, okay. In relation to this question of models for the models for the sonnet and the notion of truth in the sonnet, okay. So. Loving in truth. This is one of the most famous sonnets of Sidney. Yeah, who's also a soldier. Loving in truth and fain in verse my love to show. Fain meaning I want to show my love in verse. Loving in truth and fain in verse my love to show, that the dear she might take some pleasure of my pain. Pleasure might cause her read. Reading might make her know. Knowledge might pity win, and pity grace obtain. So I think if she gets pleasure in my pain, if I write about how painful it is to love her, she takes pleasure in my pain, then pleasure will cause her to read, then she get to know, and then she feels sorry, and then she'll give me grace. I sought fit words to paint the blackest face of woe, studying inventions fine, her wits to entertain, oft turning others' leaves to see if thence would flow some fresh and fruitful showers upon my sunburned brain. In other words, I went to study other people's poems, leaves meaning pages. I read other people's books, okay, to see if I get some fresh ideas, okay. But words came halting forth, wanting meaning lacking, invention stay, invention nature's child, fled stepdame studies blows. So I was studying other people's poems. And others' feet still seem but strangers in my way, thus great with child to speak. Enceinte, je voulais accoucher de ma parole. Thus great with child to speak and helpless in my throes, biting my truant pen, beating myself for spite. Fool, said my muse to me, look in thy heart and write. Okay, so don't go on models, right? But then, of course, this too becomes a model, right? So this sincerity becomes also an artifice, right? And I want to go to, that's Spencer, okay? Sydney, all right. Spencer, tous ces noms qui commencent avec S, yeah. Spencer is unusual in that, so I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to bring up Spencer. I'm going to put Spencer down. I'm going to minimize us. Yeah, why do I not? Sorry, so I bring up Spencer. And then I share the screen. So Spencer is different. Yeah, Spencer is Irish. Donc, il a beaucoup souffert pendant l'expédition de Essex, oui, en Irlande. So again, here you got this metaphor of the huntsman. So ça, on va voir dans le grand sonnet de Wyatt tout à l'heure. Est-ce que vous devez partir, dites-moi, ou est-ce que vous pouvez rester 5 minutes? Can you let me know that? Or maybe some of you have left already. Est-ce que vous pouvez rester encore 5 minutes? No? I hope you can. Yeah, 5 minutes. Okay, so Spencer, you read these things in your own time, okay? But like as a huntsman after weary chase, seeing the game from him escaped away, sits down to rest him in some shady place with panting hounds beguiled of their prey. So he's saying he's hunting after the deer, the gentle deer, yeah, his beloved, all right? And then there she, beholding me with milder look, sought not to fly, but fearless still did bide, till I in hand her yet half trembling took, and with her own good will her firmly tied. Strange thing me seemed to see a beast so wild, so goodly one, with her own will beguiled. Spencer is unusual in that the bien-aimé is actually, and he ends up marrying her, the beloved, yeah. He wants to organize his feeling, Spencer, so that it's satisfied feeling, yeah, so goodly won, yeah. So he doesn't lose her, okay, he gains her, all right. Now the kind of classic hunting sonnet is not Spencer, it's, sorry, I'm running out of time. Here, can I get that? Yeah, so there and there. Wyatt, come on, Wyatt, where are you? Share screen. Why is it not giving me Wyatt? Nah. Do you have there Thomas Wyatt sonnet? Yeah?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so whoso lists to hunt, whoever wants to hunt, I know where there's a hind, a deer. This is the sonnet to Anne Boleyn. Whoso lists to hunt, I know where is an hind, but as for me, alas, I may no more. The vain travail hath wearied me so sore, I'm of them that furthest come behind. Yet may I by no means my wearied mind draw from the deer, but as she fleeth afore, fainting I follow. I leave off, therefore, since in a net I seek to hold the wind. Ça c'est du Pétrarque pur. Hein? Yeah, the aura, the air. Who list her hunt, qui veut la chasser? I put him out of doubt, as well as I may spend his time in vain. And graven with diamonds in letters plain, there is written her fair neck round about. Noli me tangere, do not touch me. Yeah, c'est ce que Jésus a dit à qui, vous savez? À Marie-Madeleine. Noli me tangere, for Caesar's I am, and wild for to hold, though I seem tame. Yeah. Wild for to hold. This is the grand éloge de la femme, yeah, pour l'époque. Yeah. She's wild to hold, though I seem tame. Yeah, it's a fantastic line, that. Yeah. So, Wyatt, he introduces a public dimension to his private disarray, his désarroi, yeah, and this expression of the failure to capture, yeah. Well, we're going to stop there. I've run out of time. My apologies for running over time. Does anybody have any questions or comments or anything that they'd like to bring up? No? Are you sure? So we're going to look at, next week, we're going to look at Shakespeare, okay? Can I give you some numbers of sonnets I want you to read, yeah, for next time? I want us to do, to look at 4 sonnets for next time, yeah? Actually, 5, 6 sonnets for next time, okay? Can I give you the numbers? I'll send an email about this, okay? Donc, 18, yeah. You can find these online, even if they're not on Monsieur Claret's little plaquette of Shakespeare sonnets on the course page. I don't think they're all on there, but you can easily find them online. Okay, no problem. Donc, 18, 23, 29, 30, 43, and 60. Okay, donc 18, 23, 29, 30, 43 et 60. Okay. I may quickly refer to others. Donc, ce qui est très important pour vous, c'est d'avoir tous les sonnets sous la main. Donc, if you can just open up a site of Shakespeare's sonnets so that you have them à portée de main when we're looking at things, yeah. So I don't need to do screen sharing. This stuff today, I may come back to it. If there's stuff you want to bring up. Donc, je vous invite à relire, donc à re-regarder, relire les poèmes qu'on a vus aujourd'hui, ok? Essaye de bien les comprendre. You don't need to understand everything, but go just to go over them. Try and place them in this kind of survey of Petrarch into Shakespeare. Try and place them. And if you want to ask me any questions by email, feel free. Okay, send me an email and I'll answer your email. Sinon, next week we'll be looking at the Shakespeare sonnets. Okay, those sonnets that I gave you, the 6 sonnets that I gave you. Okay, I think it was 6. Yeah, 6 sonnets for next week. Okay, all right. So does anybody have any questions or comments or anything they want to add? No? Okay, well, take care of yourselves. Bye for now. Okay, and see you next week. And enjoy Shakespeare. Okay, yeah? Bye.